Hello, everybody, as opposed to viewers and voyeurs. It's more inclusive, isn't it? You know, when I was a kid, I used to love to invent games. I invented tons of games, and the kids in the neighborhood used to ask me, "Hey, Rich, invent games," except it wasn't Rich back then. It was like, well, it was like Ricky, but I tried to get away from that, and now my name is Rich. Anyhow, I developed this bunch of cool games. There was some wall ball, where we had special PVC pipes, and we'd smash balls against walls. They'd rebound in our faces and hit each other with sticks and shit like that. That was a lot of fun. And then we also had something called the tree climbing course. This was brilliant. My folks planted some Brazilian peppers, Florida hollies. They had an acre. And on the long end of the acre, the long run, we had one set of hollies that had grown completely together. There was no way to trim them because they just grew and grew and grew. And you were supposed to climb from one end to the other. We would time it. And you couldn't do it at the lower level. It was too dense. You had to come up there and you had to swing from tree to tree and jump and all kinds of shit. And it was fun. And then you get all bloody and everything. And once I fell and I grabbed the tree and I slid down. I still got a scar over here, but you can't see it in this light. But if you were here, you could see it, but you're not. Anyway, that was pretty good. There was a whole bunch. We had this bamboo pole I hung, and we'd swing it back and forth, and it would pop us in the face. And they were they were little violent games. But that was, that was part of the deal. But one of the games, and I don't think this is really something I can take credit for, was called what was it called anyway? So we had special names for all the games. It was very important, you see. It was called trash pile hunting. Trash pile hunting. This is a good name. Most of them were like in Star Trek, transporter, communicator, trash pile hunting. So what we would do is we'd go from one area to the other area in the neighborhood, and back then everybody could dump any kind of trash they wanted to. I guess you couldn't, maybe decapitated heads or stuff. We never found any of that. But electrical devices and kitchen things and clippings from whatever and, fingernail clippings and whatever. And they were all there, and we would go, and all people throw all kinds of shit away. And it was a lot of fun. And the idea was who could find, the coolest stuff. And one day I found this electrical device, and I didn't know what it was. And I love to take things apart. So I took it apart, and I found this huge magnet in it. And it was shaped like this. It was big. And it was black. And it was heavy, and it was strong. It was like a really powerful magnet, man. It was just incredible. And I thought, this is the best find ever. I mean, it was. It's the best thing I've ever found. And, you could pick up stuff from, far away that was, metals and stuff. Woo! And, for a kid, that's great. And I'm about 10 years old, and this has got to be the greatest thing ever. But the thing is, I was I guess around maybe 5th grade or something like that. Let's see, I was 10 and something like that, yeah. And my teacher was Mr. Patil, and he used to be really into science. And he was a weird guy, though, because he was good at science, but he used to take people up on he had a lab bench. It was in front of the class, and he used to put them up there. They had no choice, and he would tickle them, boys and girls. He would just tickle them. He wouldn't let them go. He'd tickle them, and the class would laugh, and he'd do it to everybody. Back then, that was okay, because, I guess the thing is that there weren't weird people back then. Okay, but they didn't live in our neighborhood. That was it. Not people could tickle kids. They're not, going to be any pedophiles around, and there was no people with facial tattoos or shit. So that he could do shit like that, and whatever. But anyway, he talked to us a lot about science, And so I knew about electromagnetism. I didn't really understand it, but I got this idea that this magnet, which was super powerful already, had something to do with electromagnetism. And the electro part got me really, really interested. And what I did was, when my parents weren't home, because I sensed that this was an experiment I should conduct alone. What I did, so they left, and I said, I'm going to make this magnet super duper strong. And so, being the scientist that I am, what I did is I took 2 wires, and I wrapped them around the magnet on each end, this big magnet, and they were insulated wires, and I shoved them in a live electrical outlet. And as you might imagine, there was this huge noise, like a pop. And it was like, but it was much louder than that and much scarier. And it lasted longer because it was ringing in my ears. And what happened was there was like this white, blue, and then there were sparks. And like I think parts of the magnet came off. And of course the fuse blew. And I was pretty scared. Now, I wasn't touching the magnet or anything, you know. I had just the wires. But the wires, like there was this smell. It was like a really awful, the insulation had burned, and it was like that rubber shit smell. And I thought, oh, man. And, okay, and I didn't really know how to fix the fuse because that wasn't, and also it was like up in the house we were at then, it was up high. And I it was like, you know, I would put his chair under there, I guess, but I didn't know where the fuses were. So I said, okay, fuck that. What I'll do is I just took the magnet, I put it under my bed, because it didn't smell. And I took the wires and I took them outside and I hid them. I didn't even put them in the trash because these were secret experiments and stuff. And I kind of came to the conclusion that probably this is not going to work. That this magnet was pretty strong as it is, and I shouldn't be putting those wires in there and all that. But I consider this to be a formative experience in my life. And I think, what would have happened if I hadn't had that experience? Can you imagine? Suppose I had another experience. Suppose that I had taken that magnet and tested it on something, and it was pretty strong. And then I did this, and then I tested it, and it seemed, because maybe the object I was using had more iron in it or something, that it had gotten stronger. Because it really didn't work. I did test it. I was hoping. I thought maybe that loud, but it didn't. It didn't work. But I hid it under my bed right away because I was afraid that they would come home, and it smelled, and I needed to. Yeah. Anyway, so if I didn't, right? If I had thought that maybe this somehow worked, that experience could have changed me. I could have taken another path. I could have been hunting for magnets and putting electrical wires into live outlets to charge those magnets up, to achieve all these super strong magnets, and to change the world. And I could still be doing that today. But I learned that there's some things that are not possible. I hope you cheer up, Very Blast. Thank you for your rosemary and thyme.